To get things started, a few introductions. My name is Todd Anglin, and I'm Chief Evangelist and Vice President for Developer Relations at Progress. And I'm joined on the keynote stage this morning by...
I am Burke Holland. I am the Director of Developer Relations at Progress.
We're going to do our best to make this keynote not terrible for you this morning.
That's the goal.
We've got you in the room here. We've got the recording going on, and I think we even have a live stream maybe somewhere happening on the fancy Facebook live stream.
Valio's periscoping it.
There we go. So everyone watching there or watching after the fact, thanks for watching. And to the whole team, the core NativeScript team in Sofia and everywhere around the world, we wish you could all be here, but you guys are awesome. We're going to make NativeScript look great. So before we get started today, a few logistics to make you successful during this first developer day. And this gift, Burke, I don't know. This is
how I feel with logistics. Just in life in general, this is me, so I wanted to include it in the presentation.
We don't want you to be like this cat. We want you to be a little more successful than falling off a cliff here. So a few things about today. First and foremost, we want to thank our sponsors for helping make today possible. They're out in the hallway there. I think Microsoft's setting up here in just a few minutes. But Progress, of course, where we are from, Progress, one of the primary sponsors, helping invest in NativeScript. Thanks to them for helping us put this event on. Microsoft, Wrangle.io, Wrangle's here. They've got a great booth out there up front. Twilio will be on stage after us to give you a little demo of some of the cool things they're doing. And I was told by Sam at Twilio that they've got a bunch of announcements they just made like this morning in London. So you'll be the first to hear them here in North America. So big thanks to our sponsors for making this event happen, and Mobile Tea and Boston New Tech for helping us put on tonight's activities. A lot of the people go into an event like this. If you want to know what's happening today, it's all happening here. The content's all here. The agenda's online. Go check that out if you want to know what's coming up. Lunch at 12:30. You don't want to miss that. And then we have a wonderful closing keynote. 4:15, Mr. Ray Camden.
The man himself, Raymond Camden.
Raymond.
The man himself. Where is he? Yeah, he's in
there. We go.
There
Ray in the back there. You don't want to miss that closing keynote. Stick around. And of course, if you do stick around, you'll be rewarded with a social hour thereafter right here in the lobby. And we have the Mobile Tea Beats and Code, 6 to 9 p.m. Up in the ballroom. And there will be free food, free drinks. So come, apply your knowledge, get to meet some of the other people working with NativeScript, and it'll be a great time. All right, that's logistics. You've been set up to succeed. Oh, right. 2 additional announcements that I wrote down so I wouldn't forget. First, because we have such great sponsors, please go visit them. Visit them and make sure you get a star. They've got little sticker stars. If you can get 3 stars from all the vendors, come to the registration table. We've got Angular t-shirts generously donated by Google here, which you will get if you get your 3 sponsors stars. So go visit the sponsors, say thanks for helping make this day possible, learn about what they do, get your stickers, get a t-shirt. Also, I've been reminded that if you are using NativeScript now and you need some amazing UI for NativeScript, if you buy UI for NativeScript from Telerik during today's event,
yes,
go to the registration table, show them that you've done that, and they've got some amazing hoodies. I think kind of like this hoodie, a little bit different, that you'll get just for doing that during today's event. So lots of ways to earn swag to go home dressed head to toe in NativeScript.
Yeah, if you do this right, you can get a hoodie and 2, 3 shirts, 4 shirts. Maybe Microsoft will have some shirts too. Who knows?
How much?
A whole new wardrobe.
Everything you need to look amazing.
That's right.
All right, logistics, that's it. I think we got it all, so I think we can go on and get to the core of this morning, the keynote content. And for today's keynote, to kind of set the day up, we wanted to spend a few minutes giving you sort of an overview of NativeScript. Not really technically, but take a step back and share with you why we started this project in the first place, look at the past, talk a little bit about some of the really cool things happening right now in NativeScript, and then paint a picture for you about where we think NativeScript can go next through the end of this year into 2017, and kind of give you a sense of how the project's maturing. And as Burke says...
It's tense.
It's tense.
Actually, this is my 12-year-old's idea. He said, you should make a joke.
So this is 12-year-old humor that...
I wish I had taken this out.
Well, it's great. So then to get things started here, let me first start by setting the stage for the project. NativeScript is a project that we've actually been working on at Telerik and now Progress for a number of years. We started working on the earliest forms of NativeScript back in 2013 when we were building a product called Telerik Platform, and within that, something called App Builder. And if you've been a real student of history before that, we had something called Icenium. Anybody in here remember the Icenium days? Handful of hands, so some of you have been with us for a while. And from the beginning, as you know, if you've looked at those products, we were doing a lot to try to make developers successful building hybrid apps. And we've done a lot, and we still do a lot for that. But a lot of the engineering teams saw that there were some challenges that we just couldn't get past with hybrid apps, that uncanny valley of performance or touch interactions. So we began some spikes, some early prototypes to say, could we build something that actually addresses some of these challenges that would still appeal to that audience that knows web development skills. So we started in 2013. We saw the concept was valid. We invested in core engineering. Launched last year at Telerik Next with 1.5, actually, we launched last year. And then this year has really been about ramping up the community and building you guys here, building a community around NativeScript that can take it forward into the mass market next year. So that's where we are. It's been a few-year journey. You're coming in at just the right time, and I want to share with you a little bit more about how we got here. That's our story for today. So let me take you back. Let me take you back to the past. We're going to go in a time machine, only we won't put on VR goggles. We'll just do it right here in this room and talk about the beginning of NativeScript and really the motivations for creating it. In many ways, as I just shared, NativeScript for us is about delivering on what should have been the promise of hybrid. And I'm curious, how many people in here have done or are doing hybrid development? About half the room, a little more than half the room, so that's about what we would have expected. And what we found with this promise is that hybrid said we should be able to solve this problem of how we build applications for multiple platforms, iOS, Android, Windows Phone at the time, but Windows Phone, it's Windows Phone users in here, I don't think a ton, sort of faded away.
Yeah,
but Windows 10, super relevant,
Yes.
So Surface, great device. But here we are a decade later, multiple devices, and we still have a challenge figuring out how to build, maintain, and evolve software, building high-quality apps for multiple platforms. And hybrid's appeal for a lot of us coming from web developer backgrounds is you could do all this and use your web development skills. So have some additional code sharing and skill sharing with the web. So in theory, this promise is supposed to give us the best of both worlds. The reach and the skill reuse of the web with some of the richness and access to native device APIs of native apps. And this is what we all strive to achieve. Unfortunately, as we've sort of worked with developers, and we've worked a lot with hybrid developers, and frankly, developers coming from a lot of different backgrounds, we found the story hasn't quite panned out. We really pushed hard to make it pan out, and there's a lot of headlines. You've seen them all. I think some of them are hype, some of them aren't, but I think this statement generally reflects what we encounter when we talk to anyone who's been doing hybrid for a while, that if you want to create an awesome user experience, the native app approach is generally the best. And it doesn't mean you can't get a good app with hybrid approach, but if you want the best, you've got to go native. And this was a challenge for us. Remember, we're building a bunch of tools for hybrid apps. We're saying, wait a second, we want people to build amazing apps. How do we build the right framework for people to achieve amazing apps but still use that same skill set?
And nobody knows this better than us because we had armies of people and engineers looking at this and working on hybrid. And we even launched our own campaigns to try to prove that hybrid could be just as fast as native, and shot videos in Austin where we had the HTML5 challenge. And so we know everything there is to know about hybrid, I do believe.
So it's kind of like this. I mean, this is, I think, what we like to say. Imitation is always an imitation. This guy got kind of close. He could have tried a little harder.
It's not a great attempt.
But, an imitation is always an imitation. That being said, you can build great hybrid apps. And we've seen people do it. There are great frameworks out there to help you get really close. But the challenge we further observe is that when you do it, there's sort of this notion that first 80% of your app takes about 80% of your app development time. And that last 20% takes the other 80% of your app development time. And the real truth here is it's the mobile browsers, the mobile web views, and the mastery you need to have of JavaScript, CSS, and HTML to make those things just sing requires you to be a wizard to really achieve great results. And I'm not a wizard. I'll be honest, I can't write great code, so that's not me, but you can do it. It just takes a lot of work to make a hybrid app really perfect.
Yeah, and one of the deceiving things here is that it's, especially with hybrid, is that we couldn't see it on the front end. And so you would build the app, and then there's an 80%, this long kind of spiky tail that no one can see. And then when you get back there, you're like, why can't I make this work? I must be a terrible developer. And so people begin to blame themselves that their apps didn't perform quite as well as they wanted to, without realizing that everyone had that exact same problem, including us at the time.
So we love hybrid, but we know there are a lot of developers who just were struggling to get the results they wanted. And that's really the point here, is that we need to help the average developer get past this notion of a platform of compromises where they were building apps because they really wanted the benefits of hybrid, but they just couldn't quite figure out how to get the quality they wanted or the smooth animations they wanted. We wanted to give them a solution, give you a solution, or start a solution that could help people achieve the results they wanted with the benefits of their skills. So we're running a survey right now. Some of you may have already replied to it. If you haven't checked social media, there's a bunch of links going around. And it should be no surprise that when we ask people where are they coming from when they start looking at or using NativeScript, the number one answer right now by a long shot is hybrid and PhoneGap-based development. About 60% of people coming to NativeScript today are coming from that background. Number two up there, a little surprising to me, is native SDKs. So a lot of people are coming to NativeScript today that are coming from just doing raw native development. And we see this too when we talk to people. A lot of people still, when they get frustrated with these cross-platform approaches, retreat to native, only to find still too expensive. Still too expensive to build one app multiple times, multiple teams, and they come back looking for something like NativeScript.
And I actually talked to someone last night who was coming from native Android, working their way back into JavaScript solutions that would go cross-platform. So we generally think that it's all web developers coming in trying to do that, but actually that's not the case. It's an equal amount of native developers that are looking for a way to hit both platforms with one go.
So it's a cool solution. It's solving a problem. In many ways, again, we're trying to get you past or help the developer community get past this binary choice. If you have a web developer background, if you want that skill reuse, you have two choices today. If you want to build a great mobile app, you can either get fast to market, use all those skills you've got, and make a few compromises around what you can really achieve by going with a hybrid approach. Or if you really need the best experience today, if you're going to buy into this notion that the best experience requires native, you're going to do that, but it's going to take you a little bit longer. Maybe you just won't build support for one platform. This is the choice you have today, but clearly no one wants to make this choice. You don't want to make this choice. We don't want to make this choice. So we wanted to really deliver fidelity in this middle option, the ability to get fast to market, use the skills you've got, reuse your code across your web projects, your mobile projects, and get that native quality, those best experiences, no compromises. So this is precisely why we've been investing in NativeScript over the last 3 years. We think with NativeScript's foundation, focused on the web developer and leveraging those web skills, we can deliver the best of both. We can give you the code and skill reuse, we can give you the team reuse, while giving you native views. No web views here. All native UI, you've seen that yesterday in the workshops, and we think that's what really helps you get those quality apps you're after. So the project has 3 primary guiding principles, and these have really been key to how we've refined and focused where we invest, at least from a core engineering perspective. First and foremost, as I mentioned a few times here, we want NativeScript to be comfortable for the web developer. Key to this being different from other options out there is that you need to have a framework that feels just as comfortable as doing hybrid, but gives you better results. So you'll see this often when we make design decisions in the core team, that we want to make design decisions that feel native. And we'll talk a little bit today about how we're continuing to refine and extend that promise to make this even more comfortable for web developers. Clearly, if you want to have the best experience, you do need measurable, truly native performance. So we benchmark frequently, and we really are paying close attention to how we maintain that performance index. And we want to make sure you have that maximum code and skill reuse. That's the promise. That's the appeal. And so we're making sure that even at the UI layer, you have the ability to share code when you want to. Not that you have to. I mean, learn once, write everywhere is great. But there are some things that are pretty similar on a lot of platforms. So why write it again if you don't have to? We want to give you that ability in NativeScript. So you've seen it, but in case you haven't, actually, I should ask here, how many people have, coming into today, already done, excluding yesterday's workshop, some amount of NativeScript development? How many people have done it before? Okay, it's about 3/4 of the room. And how many people are just getting their feet wet, just looking at it for the first time, experimenting? Okay, about 25.
Yes.
All right,
that's
there we
awesome.
go.
I love to see that. That was
So
great.
for you, the NativeScript difference is this. You get those rich, animated, no-compromise native UIs. And if you haven't already downloaded and installed this on your device, it's in the app stores for iOS, for Android. It's the kitchen sink demo. Shows you just kind of how NativeScript can perform, some of that UI for NativeScript, like data visualizations. Install it on your device, install it on your friends' devices. Great way to jump in and see how it works on your device. We also deliver that measurable native UI performance. As we say in the web, no jank. We want smooth 60 frames per second in every interaction as you transition between views. So we have benchmarks running against that. This is sort of one of the frame rate benchmarks on the Android platform. And we want these benchmarks to be super transparent, right?
Correct. Yeah, we're always updating these. We don't want to just say it's fast. We actually want it to be fast. So it's one thing to provide lip service. We'd like to provide perf examples so that you can actually see what we're talking about.
So these are out there in the GitHub repo, and we're extending these and expanding these regularly so you can go out there and run them for yourself. And finally, and this is a cool demo. We didn't create it. Nathan Walker created this.
Someone
Nathan's
smarter than us.
in the room here.
There he is, right
so
there.
credit to him for this video, which we've shown many times. But this really illustrates well what we mean when we talk about maximum code and skill reusability. This is a demo based, I think, on the Angular Seed project, which shows you a app created with one code base, running in the browser, and then natively on iOS and Android. One code base, some UI customizations, but maximum code reuse across the web and native mobile apps. Super cool. This is what brings a lot of people deeper into NativeScript, and thanks to Nathan for the cool video and the great Angular Seed project, which you guys should definitely check out. So that's what we are doing. We are trying to cultivate a community around delivering on that promise of hybrid, amazing quality apps, no compromises, using the skills and the teams you already have. So with that message, we've had a really exciting year so far. If you've been paying attention at all, you saw that we were at NGConf in May with a relatively major milestone for NativeScript. We were launching NativeScript 2.0, and Burke here was on the stage there with Google, and we're having a lot of fun talking about what NativeScript was doing. And so far this year, from January to today, I think you guys have seen it on Twitter if you've been paying attention, but downloads of NativeScript are up almost 400%, just on a tear right now, and that's big thanks to you guys. So thank you guys for helping us reach these milestones. Golf claps.
Very nice. Impressive.
So NPM downloads are way up as well. That's thumbs up for you guys. Emojis. This is for TJ Van Tol. We want to make sure we emoji the
king of emoji right there. There he is, folks.
Slides. You'll get more of this later. But active users are also important for us. We have within the NativeScript CLI some instrumentation which helps us keep track of where things are working, where they're not, so we can make it better. And we're happy to kind of keep reporting that the active users of NativeScript keep doubling and doubling every couple of months. And active users are up over 500% since January. Percents, I mean, this is like infinity percent, right? I mean, what's the difference? 500 infinity.
500 is same difference.
But the point here is
like
that
everyone in the world.
The momentum is huge. You guys are a big part of that and making that happen, and we're pretty excited about that. And we think that there's a lot more we're going to do even this year. Along the way, we've started to work with some really cool companies using NativeScript to build projects for themselves and for their clients. Some of you here today may be from some of these companies, so thank you for helping bring NativeScript into those environments. We think there are a lot of neat things happening all over the globe with NativeScript today, and we're pretty excited for that showcase gallery to keep growing and showing the apps that a lot of these companies are building today. Happening all over the globe. Who's traveled the farthest to get here? I came from Texas to get here.
Nashville.
Anybody further? Where from? LA, it's farther. All right. Mexico City, all right. We got new records here. Ooh,
whoa!
Ukraine, all right.
Yeah. Who can beat Ukraine? Anybody?
Anybody can beat Ukraine? All right, you win.
Anybody from Russia here? No?
All right. Good job. Thanks for joining us today.
India!
Oh!
Whoa!
I think we just got a winner.
Wow.
We'll compare the maps later.
Where's my person from India? Where are you?
Oh! I think we didn't really specify time box very well, did we? That was us. That's our fault. We should have done better. So in addition to growing NativeScript's adoption from a downloads and users perspective, we also knew we needed to grow a strong ecosystem around NativeScript, because really to be successful as developers, you need that ecosystem to find solutions when you don't want to create it yourself. So we knew right away we're going to need plugins, and we're going to need a lot of them. So why not just partner up with some of the biggest existing plugin marketplaces that are out there? So we focused on NPM first. NPM is a massive place to go find JavaScript plugins and extensions if you're a Node developer. So we plug right into that. And you can leverage thousands of existing plugins today inside of NativeScript, as long as they don't touch the DOM. We'll talk a little bit more about NativeScript plugins in a second. Existing native libraries for iOS and Android, also super easy to use inside of NativeScript projects. And of course, a lot of you have been involved in helping create NPM plugins around those to make it even easier to consume. We've also wanted to integrate into the IDEs you guys love. So we've spent a lot of time on VS Code. The community is doing an amazing job on WebStorm.
Yeah, that plugin looks amazing.
If you've not seen some of these integrations, they look great. Of course, the Telerik platform and app builder in the cloud, if you prefer to develop that way, has great NativeScript integration today too. And we're increasingly growing, and I think we'll accelerate this process into next year, this collection of verified plugins. And these are plugins for which we've spent a little extra time documenting, making sure they do exactly what they say they do, so you can consume them in your projects with even more confidence that they're not going to create problems for you down the road. And speaking of NPM plugins and NativeScript, in addition to the thousands of just generic plugins, we have seen an explosion of plugins created just for NativeScript. I think this number is already out of date. I think there are over 350 NPM NativeScript-specific plugins today. Some of those authors are in the room today, so buy them a beer, high five, say thanks. The top 10 plugins by NPM downloads up here, and there's some big names up here. There's Nathaniel, Nathan's both names
up there.
Are up here. Eddie
Brad,
is up there.
Yeah.
I think Nathan, you're up there, right? You're there. Good. It would be awkward if I said that and you weren't. But the number 1 and 2 spots go to the same person, and that person is Marcel. Is Marcel here? I don't think he is here.
Does Marcel make it?
That's really weak applause. Marcel is the number
Marcel,
1 and 2. All right, there we go. So if you see Marcel somewhere in the globe, buy him some beers, because this guy clearly has created some massive value for NativeScript. And I can promise you, if you start NativeScript development, you're going to want to check out these NPM plugins that he's created. So thanks to you and the community for helping us reach these milestones, super critical to how NativeScript's evolving. So it's been a busy year shipping new product updates as well. If you've been on this journey with us, you know that we've spent some releases just investing in making the performance better, making sure your apps continue to deliver that maximum native performance. We've had some major integrations shipped this year, Visual Studio Code we talked about. And then in May, we shipped the beginning of our sort of final march to the end of Angular 2 support. And very recently, additions to UI for NativeScript. So again, check that out if you want additional powerful UI widgets. But of all the things we've done this year, and we've done a lot, CSS animations, I can't miss that.
Yeah, that one was...
Oh, that's huge. Has anybody used CSS animations? If you haven't, you have to check it out. You can literally copy-paste CSS animations to the web, and they just work natively in NativeScript, which is super cool.
Yeah, Brad Martin actually ported Animate, I think it was Brad Martin, ported Animate CSS, Brad, to NativeScript, and it just works. It's crazy.
Just incredible. But clearly, among those and the things we've done, one of the most significant has been our integration with Angular. And we were on stage with Brad Green from Google at Telerik Next about a year ago, a little more than a year ago, talking about this relationship and how we were going to work with the Angular team to make NativeScript and Angular just work perfectly together. And that's really key to where we are today. So to tell us a little bit more about where we're at, how that's working, Burke, why don't you drive a few of these slides here and get us through that
All right. Thank you very much. All right, so I think that, we spend so much of our lives, even as human beings, living in either the past or looking at the future. So I want to take a few minutes. Is this the best place to stand? Probably over here. To talk about where we are right now, because there's a lot of things that we've got, and I want to cover those. So first, I have to point it.
There you go.
First, let's talk about Angular a little bit, because this is very, very, very important to the strategy of NativeScript. And specifically, the NativeScript Angular project. So I want to start with this tweet here from Jeff, which happened like 48 hours ago or something like that. But this already has been retweeted and shared several hundred times in different tweets. And we've already actually been contacted by Google about this as well. So I'm not saying this will happen, but I am saying...
Big announcement to make this morning. NativeScript's name is now not changing quite yet. Just one more time on that.
So just to point out that Angular integration in NativeScript has been far bigger than we thought it would be. So when we first created or first added the integrations on Angular for NativeScript, we didn't know that it would be as popular as it was. So I want to show you something as I was digging into and looking at this graph here. And so we had gotten this email from Brad. I'm a little bit ahead of myself. But he asked me back in 2015, he had actually reached out, actually shortly after the release of another product, which we won't name, and asked if we thought that Angular would be good for NativeScript. And so we knew at the time we had our own binding framework. We were very proud of that. We had our own routing system that we had brought with us from years of experience with .NET. It worked very well. We liked it a lot. But we knew that a lot of people were going to need more than just go nuts with JavaScript, right? They needed some sort of framework to work in. And instead of creating another one, we wanted to use one that people would know. And so at the time, this is sort of what the trends look like. Now take this with a grain of salt. This is a scope trend, but the blue line, this is Angular. So yes, Angular 1, also Angular 2, all lumped into really the same search query here. This is a Google Trend search. And then the red one is just the closest competitor, which we won't talk about. But it's important to note here that the trend for Angular is ridiculous. Angular enjoys adoption that I think most people don't even realize is as heavy as it is. And in fact, by 2017, the popularity of Angular is likely to overtake jQuery. So it's hard to really wrap your head around how popular Angular is. And so when we looked at this, we were like, man, it really makes a lot of sense for us to add this integration, because if people are going to know Angular already, how great would it be if they could just bring that knowledge directly to NativeScript and not have to relearn a different way to do things all over again?
Maximum skill reuse.
Correct, which for JavaScript developers, right, we stay tired because we're constantly relearning how to do the same thing over and over and over again. By the way, when we talk about Angular 1 and Angular 2, David East, who's awesome, But
Awesome
he's not,
guy.
from Firebase, but he's not here, so he's not that awesome.
Well,
yeah, pretty cool.
Half awesome.
Yeah, half awesome. So 1.3 million people use Angular 1. 480,000 already use Angular 2. That's insane. I don't think people realize the adoption that Angular 2 already enjoys right out of the box. And there's a couple different reasons for that. One of them is that Angular 1 now looks a whole lot like Angular 2. So here's an example. We have 1.5 code on the side, and then Angular 2 here on the right. So you can see here that these two things, aside from like the component annotation and this class here, these two things look very similar. And that's because the team at Google was smart enough to take one and sort of merge the APIs. So you have people that are on one or that are adopting one just now, and they're already really, really close to 2, right? It's a small hop for them to get over there. And it makes a lot of sense performance-wise as well.
People in here are already using Angular? I think we're going to ask how many people are already doing Angular 1 development in this room? That's about half-ish, a little more than half-ish the room.
Yeah.
In Angular 2, okay.
Yeah,
That's
so a
about
good show.
another
Yeah,
half of the
that's about
room
right now.
for the recording. For people who can't see your hands, you must tell them how many hands are raised.
That was good. It was about half of. It was right on with the number that David East shared. So that's how you know David East knows what he's talking about.
He's amazing.
Yeah. So Angular also, if you haven't heard, is now final, right? So we can, right? Yes, exactly.
The RCs are over.
Listen, no one was more exhausted than we were. Every time they shipped an update to that RC, it broke NativeScript.
What does RC stand for again?
It used to stand for Release Candidate.
Really cool release.
I have no idea.
All right.
It stands for Rewritten Router.
Need to reboot RC,
Yeah.
get it back to its meaning.
So we are so glad, but to be honest with you, we're really happy with where Angular 2 ended up. We think they made a lot of really good design choices. Maybe we wish they hadn't have broken so many things in the process, but we're really happy with that, where that ended up, and we're also very happy with where our integrations ended up as well. So I want to thank the team in Sofia, Hristo Deshev, and Alex, and all the other people that worked so hard on these integrations and have been fighting with those RCs for months.
You know, we have some of the core engineering team here.
They are here.
If you're core engineering in NativeScript, stand up, please, and don't be shy.
They're all in the back.
Oh, come on.
Typical engineers sitting in the back in the dark.
Go meet these people. They're from the core team. They've traveled from Sofia, a lot of them, so go say hi.
Yeah, so fantastic work from them. And then the last thing that I want to talk about in regards to Angular and why this is so important is TypeScript. TypeScript, if you didn't know, NativeScript is actually built with TypeScript. So the JavaScript portions of NativeScript that are actually rendered are built with TypeScript on the back end. This would be things like the cross-platform modules. Angular 2 is also built on and for TypeScript. We have been just floored with what Microsoft has done with TypeScript. It is a fantastic language sitting on top of JavaScript, and it makes JavaScript accessible to so many developers. So if you don't know how this works, and hopefully this is big enough, you can see in this example, I'm basically looking into the native iOS SDK from TypeScript. And I can do that because we provide definitions for the entire iOS SDK and Android as well. So in this case, I'm looking at a UI color, but if I didn't have this inside of the IDE, I would actually have to go to the Apple docs to figure out what this is. And then if I wanted to do that for Android, I'd have to go to the Android docs and do the same thing. So we knew that this doesn't work, right? No one's going to do this. And so we wanted to make it possible to do this right from the IDE. TypeScript allows us to do that. Powerful, powerful stuff. So you may know, we talked about how NativeScript uses TypeScript. We talked about how Angular uses TypeScript. I don't know if everybody knows this. Did you know that Ember uses TypeScript? Anybody know that? What about, did you know Dojo uses TypeScript? Anybody using Dojo? No, that's okay. What about this last one? Who's this last one? Anybody know? Aurelia.
Oh,
Aurelia
good,
also.
good.
Yeah, that was good. Aurelia. Anybody using Aurelia?
Well done. Good job
nice.
there.
So a
Representing.
lot of folks, a lot of libraries, a lot of projects picking up using TypeScript. And actually, I was reading an article this morning. Facebook also uses a static JavaScript type checker.
So what you're
called
saying here
Flow.
is don't be afraid of TypeScript. Everyone's
Don't
using
be afraid
TypeScript.
of types in your JavaScript. It's okay. So yeah, lastly, I want to talk about, well, for the present here, Visual Studio Code. This is another project that we have just been absolutely thrilled with. And this is, again, I don't think people understand how enormous Visual Studio Code is. So I reached out to the team and I asked them for some stats that I could share. So if you didn't know, Visual Studio Code has now been installed 2 million times. That's insane. I don't think we've ever seen anything like this in terms of a text editor that's taken over so rapidly. It now supports over 100 different languages, although the only ones we care about are TypeScript and JavaScript.
That's all I know.
Who writes any of those other languages?
And CSS.
And CSS. Nobody writes that either. We just copy and paste it from the internet. And over 1,000 extensions now for Visual Studio Code, right? So, I mean, this is happening. This is a phenomenon. We love Visual Studio Code. We built the NativeScript extension for Visual Studio Code. So if you don't know, let me sort of clue you in here. You can download the NativeScript extension for Visual Studio Code, which you can see already has 13,000 downloads, which is insane. Let me show you a little bit about how that works. In this example, you'll see that I'm actually breaking into Angular 2 code here. Then once I'm in, I can interact with objects that are in the currently visible scope. I can go and look at any variables. I can see the entire stack trace. And this is all TypeScript, and this is Angular 2 code. So I can now work with my NativeScript projects the same way that you would work with a very mature platform and language such as C# or Java, so that you don't have to throw your code into a black box, pray that it works, and then run it and try to figure it out that way, right? There's better ways to develop code, develop apps. This is the better way. So if you haven't checked out our extension for Visual Studio Code, I highly encourage you to do that. We just shipped an update, which now includes syncing to iOS and Android, which is a whole lot faster than a rebuild. So definitely check that out if you haven't already. All right, so that brings
Tell
us
us about
to,
what's new, Burke.
That brings us to 2.3. So today we are announcing or letting you know about the 2.3 release, which has just dropped. And there is some amazing stuff in the 2.3 release. We're going to show you a little bit of it to you this morning, although I don't want to steal TJ and Jen's thunder. There they are back there, because they're going to come on right after this and give you a more in-depth look about what's new in NativeScript. The first thing that we want to show you is something that we are so excited about, and that is we have a new default theme for NativeScript. This is huge. Yes, this is huge. It turns out that while native apps perform really well, by default, they're kind of hideous.
They don't look so good.
They look terrible. And so if you'll know this if you built a native app
Kind of like when we wake
before.
up in the morning.
Before all the product. Yeah, I don't use as much
No? Not as
product.
much?
No,
All right.
a little bit less. So the default theme. So what does this look like? This is the new default light theme for NativeScript. So you can see here, it is not that color. That looks like green. So on the screen here, it looks amazing. If only you could see it. It's a light blue, not a green. And you can see that, also, it doesn't retain. So when you can actually see the theme here, there's subtle things like the shadows on Android, the material design influences that you would see. So the platforms look very similar, but they retain their subtle things that make them unique, like the toggle on iOS and the shadows, the subtle shadows that Android has.
But what if I want it to be teal, Burke?
You can make it teal. We'll talk about that here in a second. Let's look at how you use this. So today you can do npm install NativeScript theme core, and you'll notice that adds an import statement to your CSS file. And then once you do that, you also have a CSS folder, so you can choose from the dark or the light themes. And also notice that it does not overwrite your CSS. Right, so everything that you had is still there. We wanted to make sure that this theme did not interrupt your current app so that you could add it in, then override it as you saw fit. I think this is brilliant. The way that this has been implemented is gorgeous. I love this. You can add this today. Also, if you didn't know, you can access the terminal directly from Visual Studio Code. I learned that as I was putting this demo together. Another reason Visual Studio Code's awesome. So how do you use this theme? Let's take a look. In this example, we have a button. You see the iOS button up there on the right, and it is not that easy to look at. We can add a few classes here, and we get a nice NativeScript-themed button. If we wanted to have it to be an outline button, add that class, we get an outline button. And we can also do things like round corners, very simply. So we can have large rounded corners, or we can have smaller rounded corners as well, just by tweaking the classes. Now, if you're paying attention here, you may say, that looks a lot like Bootstrap, like the BTN and BTN-primary. Yes, it does. So there were some very intentional design choices made here, specifically around making it so that if you know Bootstrap, which is extremely ubiquitous, it should feel very, very familiar to come in and begin to theme your app with the NativeScript theme. So we're so excited about this NativeScript theme. If you wanted it to be teal, like the disappointing projector has given us, you can do that because it's built on Sass. So you can change your primary and accent colors, and you will get a This is actually orange. Got that one right. You can get an app that is branded to your specific branding guidelines just by tweaking the colors.
A few variables and you get a whole new look.
Whole new look.
Amazing.
That's it. It's that easy. That's the new theme. So native by design, beautiful by default. Yes, it's amazing. And you can go here. TJ's been working hard on the docs, docs.nativescript.org/UI/theme. And of course with emoji, because if TJ does it, it has emoji with it.
And our community's been a big help here too, right? Implementing this thing.
So if you're in this room and you worked on this theme, would you mind standing up for a second? Because there's several of you.
You deserve credit.
Nathan, Nathaniel.
There we go.
TJ back there.
And all these people on the screen.
So all of this great work has been done in large part by members of the community. So we're so thrilled with the work that you guys have done here. We cannot thank you enough. I think that the rest of the NativeScript world can't thank you enough for giving us beautiful apps. So that's the new theme. Let's go ahead and talk about Kendo UI for a second. Anybody here heard of Kendo UI before? All right, so several hands. Well, if you didn't know, the same company that makes Kendo UI also makes NativeScript. And those two engineering teams are close. They know each other very well, and they've been working together very closely as well. If you also didn't know, we have rewritten Kendo UI specifically for Angular 2. It was a jQuery-based product. It has now been rewritten for Angular 2. So what that means is you get things like grids, which have filtering, sorting, editing. You can even get on top of OLAP sources and pivot tables. You can do Gantt charts. You can even put a spreadsheet in your browser if your application needs that, or the entire calendar portion of Outlook via a scheduler component. These are web components. This is all powered by Kendo UI, which is a world-class UI framework. So what we wanted to do was we wanted to make it possible for people to build applications for the web, for the responsive web, and also have a native mobile application if they wanted it all from the same project. Obviously, you can't put a grid on a mobile device. Well, I mean, you could, but you
probably shouldn't.
shouldn't.
That's probably not a great idea.
So we're not expecting people to do that, but you should be able to develop, change your color schemes in one place, and have a theme that looks consistent in both places per your branding. We wanted to show this to you. We're not quite ready. This is coming.
You have to save something for Angular Connect. I mean,
that's true. We can't release it all here. So this is coming right before Angular Connect. There is a Kendo UI Twitter account if you want to follow that. Then we'll have an example that we'll be posting shortly that's going to be a complete sales dashboard. I've seen it, kind of, for the web, and also in NativeScript as well.
So you're telling me one
Kendo
UI, I learned Kendo UI. I can use it for both my native mobile apps and my web apps too?
You can build for Kendo UI. You can reshare your logic because you're using Angular 2, so you can share your services, exactly. And then you just rewrite or have two different UI layers, one for NativeScript, one for the web, because obviously you can't have one work in both places, and your widgets will look consistent. Yes. So this is something we're working hard on. We're going to be doing more and more of this as we bring things and use Angular 2 to sort of realize this vision of being able to write from multiple platforms with one language and share code everywhere. Super exciting stuff. I want to talk about background workers for a moment. Oh, this one is super important to Nathaniel, yes. All right, so let's talk about background workers for a minute. We're going to talk about threads. If you didn't know, NativeScript is single-threaded, which means that everything runs on one thread. There are other frameworks out there that will often talk about how their UI runs on a separate thread. This is actually not good, it turns out, because NativeScript's goal is to be super fast. So you can see here, lower is better on this chart. So you can see this is the time that it takes to marshal 1,000 calls for string parameters in NativeScript versus another framework. You can see how much faster we are. That is because everything runs on one thread, because it is expensive to talk across threads, and it causes things to slow down. So if you're going for performance, it's not good to start out with your...
Well, it's not necessarily bad, let's put it that way. There are many ways to get there, but our way is definitely it's not going to hurt your performance, that's for sure.
Correct. And we wanted to make sure that we got the performance right, and we weren't just saying that it was faster. And also, most app scenarios don't require a multi-threaded architecture. A lot of times, this is just fine. But there are times when you do need multiple threads, and if you don't have them, what do you get? You get a crashed browser window and all NativeScript snap. Yes. So I want to, what is this? Okay, let's talk about web workers for a minute. So I want
These
to
are
talk
your
about
slides, Bert.
Yeah, I know. I want to talk about how we implemented this, or how we are implementing this currently as web workers in NativeScript. So you would create a new worker the same way you would for the web, point at a file that you wanted to load, and then you can call any methods from that file. You can send messages to the thread like this. You can send strings, you can send JSON objects, and you can copy objects directly, which means even objects that have circular references, which is crazy. You can't do that on the web. And then you can receive messages from that worker the same way that you would with a web worker. So again, this is our commitment to making things very familiar so that you only have to use this once. Or only have to learn this once. You can use it on the web. You can use it in NativeScript. Let's take a look at how this works. In this scenario, we have an app. I'm going to click this button, and this app is going to calculate, I think, prime numbers, the first 100. And in the meantime, the UI is completely locked up. It is unresponsive. If you're a user, this app is dead, right? It's not working. You're probably going to close it. But then our numbers come back here in the terminal, so you can see that it actually was working. The blocked UI now opens up. We can use it again. This is not an ideal scenario. In this case, what we need is a separate thread on which to calculate those primes. So this is how this would work. You would load in your worker here, this blocking.js, and then you can call that method. Now, once I do that, the UI is going to remain unblocked. So I can scroll through this list of items while on the other thread is calculating prime numbers. It looks like nothing's happening, but you'll see the numbers actually come back here in the terminal. So this is coming, actually available now as a preview. It is?
Yeah, roughly online, and you can talk to the PM back here to get access to that if you don't have access, but we'll be shipping it later this year. I think we always want to mention when we talk about multi-threading as well, a lot of plugins today already use native threads to create sort of asynchronous operations. So if you're doing HTTP fetches or you're decoding images, it's probably already happening on another thread in the plugin. This is just going to make it easy for you to put async code in your code base much more easily. So.
Correct. So what I've shown you here is coming later this year. Right now, you can open up an Xcode or Android Studio project. You can see how we're implementing this right now and get a preview of the work we're doing. Look for the actual implementation from NativeScript to be available later this year. Excellent. All right.
Good stuff.
Yeah, that's exciting. And again, there's a lot more in 2.3. TJ and Jen are going to cover that, but that's sort of a wrap-up of where we are now with that.
Yeah, we don't want to steal their thunder, so let us just instead wrap up here so that we can keep you guys on schedule and not have Brian yank us off the stage. A little bit about the future of NativeScript. That's sort of where we want to go through the end of this year and then into 2017. Again, what's sort of guiding the project? What do we see as the biggest priorities, at least within the core team? And again, we have sort of three guiding principles that are helping shape where we're spending most of our time and investing most of our energy. One is on continuing to improve the getting started experience. We think that's critical to getting more users onto NativeScript, especially as more people come in and start using it. Helping you get NativeScript onto more screens, extending that investment you're already making into more devices, and then supercharging the tooling. As developers, tooling is critical to how great an app is that we can create. So let me talk about a few things we're doing in each of these categories. First, on great getting started. And here again, I mean, how hard is it to install and configure your machine to build NativeScript apps? How hard is it to learn to use it, the learning curve? All of these things go into what we think makes up a great getting started experience. So I'm happy to say, just as we've just redone the nativescript.org website, we're on the verge of redoing the entire docs site as well. And TJ is a key player in the docs update, so it's coming very soon. If you don't like the current docs, go talk to TJ.
Just wait longer.
If you want to provide feedback, buy TJ a beer. Maybe he'll listen. But
that's right. Remember, there's only two kinds of docs.
Only two kinds of docs.
The kind people don't read and the kind they complain about.
And we know that well.
We hope to be one of those two.
So docs are critical. They're getting a lot better, and you guys can watch for that. And please do help us continue to make them better. Your contributions are a huge help there. We are also in the process of creating installers for NativeScript. And so we know that installers are key, especially on Windows, because installing everything you need to make your local environment work, that just takes a lot of energy.
Yeah, if you were here for the workshop, you know that. Yeah.
So we're going to start with Windows. Yeah, there we go. Applause for installers. Yes. And then, of course, we'll work on Mac as well. So if you don't like going through the API and NPMing everything, then this will be coming, and this is a lot of important work. I know we're on short time. I'm going to go kind of quickly through the futures here. Yeah. Flexbox layouts, I'm really excited about. This is, again, in the notion of extending your skills from the web to building native apps and making the learning curve low. If you're from a web background, you probably know Flexbox layouts now, a great new way to do layouts on the web. The layouts in NativeScript are great, the absolute, the dock, the stack layout, but they're probably not super familiar if you're from a web developer background. Flexbox layouts will begin changing that. It's really close to arriving. You can go check out a preview pretty soon. We're going to ship the first versions of this in 2.4, coming up just a few months from, 6 weeks from now-ish. So watch for that landing very soon. And then two more in this category, polyfills. Again, extending your skill set to native apps. This means giving you API compatibility with more web APIs. So things like the Canvas API or Node.js APIs. We want to bring these things into NativeScript so you can continue to take all that code you may have written for the web or copy-paste examples, and they'll just work natively in NativeScript. And finally, for developers building apps, particularly in an enterprise environment, we know that you need to have that comfort that at least out of the box, your building apps are going to have a far simpler way of securing both your code and the data you may be processing in your app. So we'll be increasingly building in out-of-the-box capabilities to secure your app, secure your code, integrate with key MDM providers, and this will be part of how we help you get up and going on that as well. To reach other screens, we want to make sure that you get beyond just iOS and Android. iOS and Android are clearly just the start. It's just where we wanted to get the story right first. But our goal is to give you a framework that can run anywhere you need to deliver an app. So we are reaffirming today that we are now going to invest significant energy into delivering NativeScript support for the Universal Windows platform. This is something we showed an early preview of in, I think, February or March of this year. And now that we've got Angular 2 support out the door, which has been the major task for the year, we're really going to turn our attention to Windows and making sure for those of you building an enterprise environment who need to reach Windows devices, you can do that using NativeScript. Along the same lines, though, we've started to explore how could we also add support for Electron. And this is a pretty cool opportunity to allow you to, again, share code, share skills, take an Electron app, and not only reach Windows, but reach Mac and Linux. So you can imagine now one NativeScript app could give you a vast amount of reach with your same code base and skill set. And then finally, supercharging your tooling. Tooling, super critical. We've done a lot in this space already, but we're planning to do a lot more. First up in the tooling space, Angular CLI and Webpack integration. If you're going to be developing with Angular, these are things you're going to be using. We want this to be a natural part of your workflow when you work with NativeScript as well. So we're going to be doing a lot here to develop these integrations. And along the same lines, we want to develop integration in partnership with Wrangle into their amazing Augury debugging tool.
This is a fantastic tool for Angular 2. Shouldn't be doing Angular 2 dev without it.
Absolutely. So if you're going to be doing Angular 2 dev with Augury, you should be doing NativeScript dev with this as well. And part of how we'll support that is by enhancing our integration with the Chrome developer tools. So today you can do amazing things with Safari debugging tools if you're building for iOS and a Mac. We want to light up all those things for Android using the Chrome debugger tools, UI inspector, HTTP inspector, all the things in the debugger tools you already know how to use. And so this is something we'll be doing soon as well. In fact, I'm told by the NativeScript PM, we're like one sprint away from having UI Inspector for iOS at least in the Safari debug tool. So I'm going to hold him to that because I am dying to see the UI Inspector come out. I'm sure a lot of you are looking forward to that too. And then finally here, cloud builds. If at the end of the day you're on a Windows machine and you want to build for iOS, or you just don't want to go through all of these steps of setting up a local build environment, we will be bringing to the NativeScript CLI direct integration with our vast cloud build server infrastructure that we've already created for things like Telerik Platform and App Builder. So now if you want to opt into cloud builds, you'll have that opportunity, simplify that getting started experience, and give you a powerful new way to build your apps in the cloud. Most importantly, though, we want NativeScript to be what you need it to be. Make NativeScript yours. Give us your feedback. Vote on the ideas that have already been submitted. Join us today by going over to nativescript.org/ideas. See what people are asking for, contribute your ideas, and help us shape this framework into the thing that we all need to build amazing apps for iOS, Android, and all the platforms that will come in the future. I think with that, with all the time-waving signs in the back here.
Yeah, I'm staying out of it. Trying to let you finish up here.
Thank you guys again for joining us on this important milestone for the very first NativeScript Developer Day. We hope you enjoy the rest of the conference today and go build some amazing apps.
Thank you.